Oh shit, I've got to press the thing, haven't I? You're listening to the Beat Motel podcast, and we need to warn you that we like to use words like fuck, shit, and syndicalus, butty scrutux, angry flap, and filth biscuits. And we don't often bleep those words out, apart from because we're not complete animals. But if you understand that and you like music, then listen on. Fuck, 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 fuck. I saw you laughing then. Was there a word that you hadn't caught before?
Angry flap.
Angry flap, yeah. Hey, you're with Beat Motel. I am Andrew Culture, and this is Dr. Royd Rage. You've put your name in the software as today. Yeah. You do look like a classic roid user. Is that what, roids? I don't know. We both like going to the gym, but neither of us are jacked up exactly.
No,
are we?
I use steroids for my psoriasis. Steroid cream. It means that my my skin doesn't flake and it looks fairly normal around my elbows. So yeah, but I don't think it produces like the
rage.
The rage. That's just being the parent of a 4-year-old.
Well, yeah, that'll do it. My daughter's been off school for the last 2 days. That's why I'm in the glamorous studio, Beat Motel Studio B, rather than Studio A. And she's having a lovely old time. I mean, she's not sleeping, and she's got a hacking cough. But this is a child who I was with her at Casualty when she was quite unwell many years ago.
Rather than just for fun.
Rather than just for freak spotting, which is a Saturday night at Casualty A&E. It absolutely was freak spotting, and she was really unwell. Actually, I'm not making fun of that, but part of the problem was she wouldn't tell the doctors what was wrong. They'd like, what's the matter? She's like, I'm fine. I'm fine. And like, you're pure white. Yeah, she was. Yeah. You know, me and her. I'm afraid she's got my genes. She's already about as white as it's possible to get. You know, we just stand in front of big sheets of paper and use them as camouflage. So, what are you like when you go to the gym? Are you one of the paraders? I thought of a good stand-up line yesterday that being a straight cisgender man, I've seen a lot of penises.
You haven't been to Finland. It's really cool in Finland.
No, God, that is absolutely true. But yeah, but in any gym, there's always the paraders. You don't strike me as a parader.
Oh no, no, not at all. I don't shower there. The gym's close enough to get home. Before
so you just run home naked rather than parading naked around the changing rooms.
Well, there's there's a sauna, sort of, but you have to go down the hallway out of the building, and so I don't use the shower or the toilet there because there's no reason to. Do
you know? I was surprised. First time I came to visit you in Helsinki, I was surprised how many penises I saw. I didn't see yours, but I saw a lot just on the walk to the festival we went to.
Was that the outdoor? That was the ANARCHO sauna.
The ANARCHO sauna.
Yeah, there's like a squat sauna up the road.
That is the most bizarrely finished thing I think I've ever heard. An ANARCHO squat sauna. Yeah, I think I'm going to start a band with that name.
And ANARCHO squats, but you have to pronounce the word the Finnish way, which is sauna, because it's a Finnish word. And then they had a sauna in the and hot tub in the festival as well. So you got a good eye view of some
willies everywhere.
Gentlemen.
In the places I was least expecting to see them.
Yes, and then there's just the personality of the people who are there.
Oh, but you're going to say the personality of the penises. The people attached to the penises.
Yes.
Do we bleep out the word penis? We don't, do we? It's just a gynecological term.
No. Angry flaps.
Angry flaps. What?
Is that a gynecological term as well?
It's just on the... I keep a list of words that amuse me, or a list of phrases, and angry flap's been on there a while, and it's not gynecological, I don't think. Well, clearly you might think it is.
Core madam, you've got some angry flaps there.
I think it came about when my cat was. We had to get a special cat flap that only opens for her. It like reads the chip that all cats have in them, and another cat came up and just looked through the window, looked through the cat flap, and she went nuts at the cat flap because obviously they couldn't get in. But stupid cat, like the whole point of this thing is she walks up to it and you hear it go click when it reads the thing in her body, and unlocks. And she stands there staring through it for ages. So after a while, it locks again. And that's when she tries to go through it. So she like butts up against it. But the massive flaw in the entire scheme is that if another cat comes up to the cat flap and she runs over and twats the cat flap to to try and attack the cat, because she gets close to it, unlocks. She said this thing where, okay, well, so it keeps out other cats unless our cat's being snouty. But I think when she's fast, she can actually get the cat flap to hit the other cat. And I think that might have been where Angry Flap came about. I've got no idea where Piss Biscuits came from.
Piss Biscuits.
Oh, I think I might have forgotten to say Piss Biscuits during the intro.
Oh, you're going to have to re-record everything.
Oh, I was thinking this morning when I was having a shower that it'd be nice to have multiple versions. And I thought, I don't have time for that.
Well, yes.
I was going to play you a guitar version this morning, but I decided it like 2 minutes ago. So that's how well prepared we are. If you haven't listened to the Beat Motel podcast before, it is actually a music commentary podcast. And you're disagreeing with that.
I think it's middle-aged punk self-help.
What would you spell that? Middle-aged punk self-mash. Marpmash? Right, let's have a riff of the week. This is your riff of the week. Who was that?
That was Joy of Sex? No. Joy of Fire with Thunderdome. And they are a New York jazzy punk band.
There's a lot of that about. And I'm all for it. When that first started, that bass tone, I was like, oh my God, that's really trebly. What on earth's going to go with that and the drums? Because it's just all going to be in the same frequency. And then the woman walks in on the video with a baritone sax? Bloody great big thing.
Yeah.
Absolutely huge. She looks like we saw someone playing those things and shouting a lot at a gig in London once. But that really bassy thing, it's just, I love stuff like this. It's sort of subverting what you might expect to see.
Well, to me, that's sort of like actually a classic-ish punk bass tone, because I was listening to, frankly, a recording of my one of my old bands yesterday, and I was listening to where the bass was placed, and you actually listen to, we sometimes talk about, and I remember just saying, like, I didn't understand frequencies, as like I didn't analyze any of these things at that point, and so I kept saying turn up the bass because I couldn't hear it, and what I meant was push the mid, because all the music is in the mid, and so that very mid-driven bass tone, actually to my ears, is just going, oh, thank fucking hell, you can hear the note of the bass. And it has, if it's the only stringed instrument, it has a lot of space to play with. So why not push the frequencies and he's playing he's not playing the lower two strings at all. He's playing chords. He's playing it much more like a baritone guitar in a way.
That's how Wolfie played bass in The Stupid. I think it was The Stupid. He just had two strings. This predated presidency of the United States of America, because that bassist only uses two strings, but it fucks up your bass neck apparently.
Oh yeah, because it will put it out of balance. But I don't know. I think this guy has more than two strings. They're quite. I have to say, I wanted to say this because of this band. I discovered this band who their last album is a good album, and it's on the Bandcamps. But God bless the Tidal playlist people, because I just saw this thing saying jazz punk and I listened to it, and a lot of it was hit and miss. Not my thing.
What other bands were on there?
Mary Halverson and what's she called? I can't remember what other bands, but it wasn't really. It was very jazz heavy rather than punk heavy, shall we say? Um, and there's an always interesting thing. I can't remember if it was us talking about this, but there's always sort of like if a I don't know. There's sort of like depends how you approach things from different places, but a lot of the time when you're more into say the jazz side of things than the other genre that you're mixing it with side of things, that it sounds a bit too nice and a bit too clean, and this band didn't sound
Yeah,
like that.
I agree entirely. They've given it some filth.
Yeah, they have a good tone. I like the tone.
I really like the huge resurgence of jazz tinged stuff. I mean, I like pure jazz. I don't know much about it, but I know I like what I hear and what I don't like. But in the UK at the moment, in a very Six Music kind of way, there's Ezra Collective, who I think they won the Mercury Award this year.
Yeah,
This year,
last year.
Comet are Coming, who are also really good fun. There is Imbibio Sound Machine, which do like a sort of an Afrobeat jazz thing. It's a lot. I mean, the Giles Peterson show on Saturdays on Six Music. I've always hesitate making recommendations, but have you ever listened to it actually, Sam?
No, I can't stand Six Music. There's far too much talking.
Not the weekends. The weekends are very, very different. There's two people. There's Jam Supernova, who she does a lot of. There's a lot of genres I didn't know existed before her show. And Giles Peterson, the founder of Acid Jazz Records and all sorts of world music stuff, his show is absolutely brilliant. And
I bet, yeah.
the only time he talks is if he's speaking to someone who's like, oh, so you were the bassist of James Brown in the 70s. He will talk with people like that, but apart from that, he just cracks on with it. And I've
Well, yeah.
discovered so much good jazz through that.
I I I don't know. Six Music. I remember when we lived in the UK, I would almost want to listen to Six Music, and then the DJs. It was that old joke about what's it Paul Whitehouse and Harry Enfield used to do about these Radio One DJs who wouldn't shut the fuck up. They like their voice more than the sound of the music they were employed to play, and I felt Six Music was that, and then you listen to, and it just drove me up the fucking wall. And occasionally I would try to listen to it, and I'd end up reverting back to, frankly, Radio 3, because they play fucking music uninterrupted so much more than Six
It's
Music does.
pretty rare to put on Radio 3 and actually hear a human voice. Very rare, in fact, isn't it? God, those
Well,
DJs have got
a
an
human
easy
voice
job.
talking, yeah. And if they're talking, they're analysing music rather than sort of analysing their own midriff.
The whole lineup on Sixth Music during the day has completely changed in the last couple of years, and I think it's considerably better. The breakfast DJ Sean Keaveney I really like. The one who used to be on, who's replaced by Lauren Averne, but I've just found out he does a daily podcast, Sean Keaveney, and I've been listening to it the last few days. It's just the radio show that he used to do. It's even got all the sound all the same sound clips and whatever that he used. I was like, oh, okay, I guess he owns the intellectual property for that then. Then there's Marianne Hobbs, who I just like. I like Marianne Hobbs. She's just sort of nice. She's just like your mate but it's mostly because I share quite a lot of her taste in music. So I like the electronica stuff that she does. Craig Charles, bless him, is not as hyper as he is when he did the weekends. Well, he still does the weekends. I don't know when he ever goes home, but that's a bit more of an afternoon. Yeah, there's a lot of talking in that. That's an awful lot of talking. And then Steve Lamac's only on one day a week, and I don't know what the appeal is of Steve Lamac. And Steve, mate, I've nothing against you. I've never got it. I don't. No, I'm not even gonna. I do have a theory, and I think it's just that it's very, 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 very conservative indie, and that's why it doesn't appeal to me.
There's an interesting aspect. Like I'm not a radio person. I grew up. If my parents listened to the radio, it would be Radio 4, because that's who they were. That's my mum. If I call my mum up, she always has to turn the radio off, and it's always Radio 4. Never listened to music radio. And where we lived, and we were much more of we were much more of an MTV generation than a radio generation, and so that's where we got our main sources of sort of music knowledge from when I was like a kid was MTV. It wasn't ever the radio. So I've never had this sort of relationship with the radio of just putting it on. And also the thing is with people talking in this stuff is that I do work as in academic work, which is qualitative, and I just cannot have another voice. Like I can't listen. I can listen to instrumental music, and therefore Radio 3 is really good. But I can't listen to voice and death metal because sometimes the voice is just buried, and it's just a texture.
Yeah, I can't write.
Yeah.
Effectively, if there's even sort of vocals, really. Something. What you just reminded me. Something I want to get back to listening to was a station that you put me onto. The Radio Helsinki, because I like the programming, I like the diversity of it, and they play some pretty far out stuff, but never like completely like, what the fuck is that? I mean, Iggy Pop's show on Six Music, sometimes he plays stuff, I just have to switch it off. I was like, no, I can't, it's just too much. And if something's too left field for me, then I'm not the arbiter of what is and isn't good left field. But if it's so wild that I can't tolerate it, then I know my family sure as hell isn't going to tolerate it. But there is talking on Radio Helsinki and adverts, but I don't know what the hell they're saying. I want to start listening to it again, but I got to know some of the adverts really, really well, to the point I'd walk around saying parts of the adverts to myself, like you might sort of, if you're on your own, how you might sing a part of a song. I'm trying to remember what song they were, like doo-doo, doo-doo. Anyway, it doesn't matter. What is that? No, I'm just wandering off into the dark back passages of my brain there. I ought to play my riff of the week. But listeners, I recommend Radio Helsinki. It's a really, really good station. Right, here's a riff.
Man, you little boys just really wouldn't understand. Sunday roast, choking down some gammon. All these rules, things he can't say, he just can't understand them. Misses the days when he could count on Clarkson, May and Hammond. Now it's only mediocre gear that he can get his hands on. Past the Queen, on the way up his nose. Dearest old Elizabeth, may God save her soul. Said the fabric of this country consists of silk and...
That was Bob Villain, which I think is a fantastic band name. It was really hard to pick the right point of that, because it starts with that riff, which I think is a decent riff. And when I first heard it, I thought they're just doing what Soft Play did in the beginning, Slaves. But the social commentary of it is really good. It's really, really smart. And it's a bit more aligned to like The Streets or something, where you kind of listen first and go, oh yeah, this is about a gammon snorting coke and whatever. Then you listen to the lyrics and go, actually, no, it's more than that. It's not just a commentary. It's doing the Dead Kennedys things of posing questions rather than just saying, this is the solution. They are also the first band ever to get to number 1 in the album charts in the UK with a home recorded album. Apparently.
But
any thoughts on that?
Some more. I mean, like, what do the album charts mean anymore? Because, I mean, I don't know how they're calculated, and it's like, it's interesting to have. I mean, I miss Top of the Pops, so. Because I remember Top of the Pops was when we moved back to the UK back in 2000. Top of the Pops was sort of like the advert of what not to be, but it was still interesting. It was still like what to define yourself against, rather than something to aspire to. I felt.
My business coach, he's said all business coaches do, saying there you can achieve anything, you can do anything you want if you put your mind to it. And I said, I can't play a peel. I can't record a peel session. I can't go on Top of the Pops. We just can't. I can't do a peel session. It's just not going to happen.
But also that's just an Americanist bullshit. Like, you can do whatever you want. Fuck off. No, we live in a capitalist system that constrains and restrains and creates opportunities and also kills a lot of opportunities. And no, we can't do whatever you want. I would love to feel I would love to feel as a valid person, not seeking paid employment, and that it doesn't work like that. You're a bastard if you're not employed. Society.
Yeah, well, I know a bunch of people who don't work. It's an annoying thing that your job is seen so much a part of who you are, and it's a part of who I am. But some of my favourite people I work with are proper anarcho, in a way that sort of say, well, why do you work? It's because I like using my brain. I like this shit. That's basically why I do it. I couldn't just sit around doing nothing. Hey, we ought to talk about music, really, shouldn't we?
You're on a tangent today.
I am on a tangent. Do you know why? It's because I'm off work today. I got a day off.
You're not concentrating.
So I still did my emails, and I basically just had a lie-in, and I've got to go and see a client after this. So it's nice. I've failed pretty badly at having a day off. But we have a theme. Now, I've written the theme down as irrelevant intros. Would you agree that's this week's theme?
Yeah, it was sort of the first idea was, the best intros, and you go, I mean, how do you pick 4 best intros from even some very good albums? It's impossible. So it became intros that sort of stick out and don't make much sense.
So my thinking with this is I've disregarded anything that's just samples, because like in hip hop especially, there is just a ton of stuff that is just irrelevant. Like the first Wu-Tang album, I fucking hate the talking between the tracks on the Wu-Tang album, 36 Chambers.
Yeah,
it annoys the hell out of me. I don't know why it's there. I know it's like a 90s skit thing that hip hop, that was happening in hip hop, but it's just shit. I just don't like it.
I know where you're coming from, and also like I disregarded intros that were just intros. So Metallica had a great line of intros that were like introductions to albums, and they're classical guitar playing and stuff like that, and it's like very good and well done. But I just sort of disregarded that sort of side of things. Although And Justice for All, the track itself, had a very good intro, but it's very hard to pick out. It's very hard to pick out that it's more like a movement than an intro. The first movement of a 9-minute or 7-minute song, however long it is, and it was. But so I went for much more. I don't know. I went for songs. I ended up going for songs that were sort of that seemed like a bit glued together.
Yeah, there's loads of stuff that I immediately turned to the world of black metal. Then I just thought, no, that's it's almost a cliche, the way, symphonic bit, heavy bit, but that's just the genre. And then there's the whole of Abbey Road by the Beatles, or most of it, and Sgt. Pepper, where it's the chopped together thing. But no, I want to take a different angle. So let's have your first track, and then I love it when you choose this band. I'm always pleased to see this band on your list. Anyone who's not listened to this show before, we can only use 30 seconds, and it always cuts at the worst possible time. But I love that was just Mike Watt's bass going, and then that's your lot.
That is Minutemen, This Ain't No Picnic, which is one of my favourite Minutemen songs, which is for, if I remember correctly, it is the bulk of the song is 2 chords. It is F, and A sharp, maybe B flat, and
It's quite low or quite thumping.
Yeah, it's like the first fret on the E string and sixth fret on the E string. That's the two chords, and it is. I think that's right. And it's great fun to play, but they're just introduced by these random chords where he's just sort of. It's almost like he's searching for some nice chords, and he just goes, "Ah, fuck it, and let's get into the song." And the chords don't. And I looked at this, and the chords they're in a different key to. I think they're to the rest of the song.
I like that though. I like that was probably just chucked down in the recording, and that's very kind of punk rock. What year is that song?
That's like 85, 86.
85, 86, because it reminded me of Damaged Goods by Damaged Goods. Ooh, send them back. Who the hell's that? Piss. Can't remember. Sorry, anyone who's screaming at their headphones, which I've now found out people do while listening to this. But also that sound is the punk guitar sound, isn't it? That stabby, trebly kind of
scratchy,
scratchy thing. Very much so. That's very much what the guitarist in your band, Pissed Resistance, sounded like to my ears.
Yeah,
really sort of attack guitar as a weapon.
Yeah, but I think it's also guitarists who are not afraid of standing out a little bit, because that's what happens with a lot of guitarists who sort of bury themselves in fuzz. You just sort of like you get lost. And
because it also covers up all your mistakes.
Yeah, whereas there's nowhere to hide with this stuff. That tone really you can't hide anywhere.
Really interesting you say that B, you said B is 5th fret, 6th fret on E, whereas I'd automatically go 1st fret on A. I think is that just our different bass playing style?
That's A sharp or B minor, B flat rather.
Oh, I thought you said B flat.
Yeah, you just said
so I'd play B flat on A. On the A string.
You can play B flat on either string.
It's faster to play on this. Anyway.
But you don't get the slide up to it.
Yeah, no, that is what I was
thinking. And also,
thinking.
You don't get the tone of the 6th fret, and that's a big part of it. Is actually it's quite higher up the neck, it's warmer than it is down low the neck.
It's hard, it is hard to get a good thunk out of anything 1st fret, isn't it?
So you go higher up the tone if you want like a sort of a warmer sound. Also, you like there is a signal change in a way when you play different strings. So to keep
you lose some
consistent.
of the intensity as well, because it's all just vibrating stuff. So if you start vibrating the string 1st fret and then slide up, you're shortening a piece of string. You're shortening a wobbling piece of string, so it can actually dynamically sound much better.
And
fuck
also,
my playing. You're right.
Also, it depends on the pattern you're playing with it. And so
this
where
is literally
the
longest conversation I've ever had about playing bass.
when I was playing with Godzilla Black, I used to play. We detune down to we drop D sometimes, but any tuning I used to go and play a lot of stuff on sort of on the 12th fret on the octave, because it particularly to sort of add some color and to the bass line if you couldn't actually move it around that much, just to sort of like because the warmth is there.
It's even the kind of slow stuff I play now. I can bring in attack and a sort of percussive bit. Ought to play another song. So Minutemen, I said that intro is like, it's almost like he's going to just chuck something down, whatever's in your head. So that's one end of the scale. The other end of the scale is a band who's just signed a huge record contract with Geffen and takes forever in the studio and gets very self-indulgent and nonsense. And that's what I'm going to play. Lovely bit of bass playing there, actually, I was going to say. So that was the Stone Roses with Breaking Into Heaven, and it's the start of the second album, and it's just like river noises, and I kept it because I decided it's not sample, it's building a soundscape.
Yeah, I was
And it
thinking
just
soundscape.
goes on forever. Completely pointless. It's the only bit that John Leckie produced. they got John Leckie produced their first album, and he's one of my favourites. He really made his name in sort of late 80s, early 90s production. And after about 4 months in the studio, the only bit they'd done is that intro, and he basically told them to go fuck themselves and walked out. They had to get a different producer. I quite like the build up of the feedback in guitar though, but then the song comes in and it's just like this weird pub blues band.
Yeah, it was like a bit smarmy.
Smarmy.
Yeah,
It is absolutely smarmy. Lovely bass playing though. I'd never really concentrated on that before. Bit busy.
Oh, that's fine. But it is that smarmy end of bass playing.
Yeah, very much so.
And
played by Manny, who made a surprise appearance in 24-Hour Party People, which I watched a couple of nights ago, which I think we might discuss another time because there's quite a lot of interesting stuff in that film. I've never seen it before. Should we go for your next song, or do you want to talk for ages about the Stone Roses?
No, I think we've talked quite a lot about the Stone Roses. Fair enough, frankly.
I've
never listened to them. It's a bit like they're they're sort of like a band I'll just never get.
Well, they're also a band I never listened to. It's weird. They were such a big thing for me as a teenager, but ever since I've been sort of questioning myself. It'd be like if you grew up obsessed with Guns N' Roses, and in your 40s you're still going, "Why did I like them so much?"
But why would you ask yourself? Guns N' Roses are fucking brilliant.
I didn't deliberately choose that to trigger you. I genuinely can't think of any band that you loved as a teenager that you wouldn't listen to now. Ugly Kid Joe?
No, I went to see them when they started getting back together and playing gigs in London. I dragged a friend along. I loved Ugly Kid Joe, and I still think their first album is fucking brilliant. And I think there's a lot of like the new metal stuff. I don't listen to ska punk anymore. I can't really stomach it anymore. I loved it as a teenager, but yeah, it's just not really on the radar anymore. And I can't abide any new ska punk. The minute I hear the on a, I just sort of go, nah, it's not for me. I've gone away. I think for me, I've just sort of gone off a lot of punk tones because I find them quite uninteresting these days. Like the whole street punk thing of like Rancid and all that stuff.
Yeah, I never got the street punk thing.
It's not that I don't like. We still don't. I never listened to those albums really that much, but it's not like I don't like them anymore. But I just don't. There's like new bands doing it. Just seems a bit. I don't know.
It seems a bit redundant. It's like new oi bands. Why?
Yeah.
Why would there be a new oi band?
Yeah, there's that thing of like there's been a hype around what's it called? There's been a hype around some like oi hardcore band in the UK over the last few years. I just don't get it.
Who?
Oh god.
I met someone who knows clowns. I was at a business networking event because I'm that cool, and this woman walked in. She was wearing a clown's t-shirt, and I literally like pretty much politely stopped speaking to the financial advisor or whatever that I was chatting to. I just went over and I went, "Fucking clowns!" And she just pointed out, "We're fucking clowns." And bear in mind, I mean, to look at me, I'm wearing what I always wear, a sort of a comfortable running top and a sports hoodie, just because I value being comfortable. So it probably came as a bit of a surprise to this middle-aged bloke. Fucking clowns! I got chatting to her, and she's mates with them. When they come over to the UK, she sort of hangs out with them, and she said they are hardcore. She said she's not met anyone else who can drink as much as clowns do, out of anyone.
I saw quite sad. The bassist on Instagram sort of posted a few days ago that she she's having to step back from touring at the moment because she needs to go and address issues that drive her to drink and do all that sort of side of things.
No.
Yeah, and there's there's the other side of all this sort of like, I mean, that's the weird thing about like Australian punk at the moment is that there's this. This is going to sound quite rude about Australian culture, but it feels like that their culture is so anti-intellectual that sort of they can get away with doing things like what's it called? Blocko. What's that fucking Smoko? My friend's got the guy is just
the chats.
Yeah,
Smoko, leave me alone.
I don't like it. I don't like that stuff. But at the same time, it's like there's something that you sort of go, that sounds a bit right. That you guys don't get that. That's pretty fucking stupid. But no, the band that I don't get in the UK that's sort of putting together oi and hardcore is Chubby and the Gang.
Chubby and the Gang.
Yeah. And just like, they're not, I listen to them, it's just not, it just doesn't click with me whatsoever.
They're not as good as ANARCHO Squat Sauna. The thing is that the whole street punk thing, I had a punk record shop, and like you, I played in a bunch of bands and done a lot of gigs, and it sort of, I always thought it was one of the most closed-minded, conservative branches of punk. The only one I can think of that's probably more conservative is the sort of people who stick slavishly to the 70 sound, the 77 sound. I'd just like to say, as a caveat, apart from Red Flag 77, who, despite the fact they put 77 in their name to tell people what they'd sound like, they don't sound like that at all. I think they're far more interesting and exploratory.
But I mean, that's the thing of like this, this is this punk rock sound, and it's like, and you go, well, actually, as far as I understood, punk rock was this sort of weird, the original punk rock scene was this weird amalgamation of art students and working class kids and Malcolm and some really sort of quite questionable managers, and who had Bernie Rhodes and Malcolm McLaren particularly, and you have these really weird like bands that come out of it, and it's not this stuff that becomes eventually becomes hard, sort of oi music at all. That's not, as far as I can understand, that's sort of like a reinterpreting history, or sort of erasing history. And in that erasing of history, you're erasing things like the Slits, who were one of the first bands on the scene, who produced one of the weirdest albums to come out of, and one of the best albums to come out of that punk scene.
I think they Slits especially still stand up because they were. I'm saying you've got to be clever to make that kind of music, but they were doing the thing of asking questions, not just moaning. I really like that. I've been meaning to read. I can't remember her name, but the singer wrote a book that was really, really well reviewed and well received. I haven't read it.
It's a really good.
It had a really good title, and I can't remember what it was.
There's a really disgusting description of Johnny Rotten's penis, unwashed penis in it.
Really?
Yeah.
What's it called? Because it's bothering me because I want to read it. And we have very few facts.
Boys.
Oh, was it? Yeah, Boys. I think by Sabrina. No, that's not right. Clothes. Music. Boys by Viv Albertine. Of course it was. Yeah. See, we record these in the morning. My brain's not really warmed up yet. I'm like a turtle that has to sit in the sun, but we haven't had any sun for a while, so my brain hasn't warmed up.
Who?
Right, let's play your next choice. Take it away, Sam.
Franz and the Ferdinands with "Take Me Out," their uber massive hit, at least in the UK. And I really didn't like that sort of post-punk indie scene that was big in the sort of the early 2000s. But fuck it, I have a weak spot for Franz Ferdinand, particularly after they did the album, the split, the Spark Brothers.
Oh, did they?
Yeah, called FFS.
Of course, yeah, nice. I do. Yeah, I absolutely do know what you're on about.
I think they could write a fucking tune, but they're also a bit weirder than a lot of bands. And this song is one sort of like indie track that is just sort of a bit going nowhere, and then 40 seconds in, they just go, "Oh, we're just going to sort of slow down and get into a disco beat, sort of a hard post-punk disco beat, and we're just going to do a disco song." And it's fucking great disco song, and it's hard to take it away from it being played everywhere and all the time. I've listened to it far too often, or I've heard it far too often. It's been played at me far too often to enjoy it anymore. But it is a really weird song, because the intro has nothing to do with the rest of the song, apart from "You Won't Be Leaving Here," apart from the vocal refrain.
Yeah, it really is so reminiscent to me of a time that in Ipswich we had a couple of friends who were putting on, we sort of call them club nights, I suppose. Really good friend called Johnny Scout, and they'd use the top room in a pub or whatever and just play tunes. I really can't think of any other way of describing it. And songs like that, and that band that did Ruby Ruby Ruby, it sort of was the beginning of Franz Ferdinand. Was sort of the intellectual end of that spectrum, and the other end of it was bands like those people from Leicester who just fired their singer. Oh, fuck's sake, my brain is not working today. I need to find out who that is. Oh, by the way, Damaged Goods is by Gang of Four. That's the band.
Oh, that's a great.
Who I couldn't remember, but now I'm going to have to find out. No, I'm just going to move on. But there was like a blokey side to that. You had Franz Ferdinand on one end of the spectrum, and the other was like the people getting drunk in pubs. But some of those are really good. There's that song "I Predict a Riot." That was good. Would never listen to it or choose it, and I'll probably turn the radio off if it came on. But yeah, it's a good song. Actually, one of my next choice isn't a million miles away, and I've got a theory that bands went through a very, very brief phase of doing this with the intros of songs as an attention grabber. So literally just to like mark out their territory. Like if you're a b-boy dancer, you might throw down a bit of vinyl on the ground as sort of your entrance. Incidentally, I was at an event recently. There's only about 10 or 15 people in the room, and the guy running the event stopped and he said, "I need to introduce somebody." And he called in this guy called Stephen Bartlett, and this guy came in, and everyone sort of went to applaud and looked at this guy, and we all looked at each other, and we didn't know who he was. He was he's a world championship darts player, apparently. He was lovely. He was such a nice person. Genuinely.
It's just like the child who won darts.
No, but I think darts is like suddenly massive in the UK again. It's the most watched sport after football. And he was wonderful. He was talking about, how struggles with mental health and coping strategies and developing a positive mindset. Really, really good. But I just felt bad when he sort of came in and we all just went, "Huh? Who are you?" He was wonderful, though. Thoroughly recommend him. I don't know why I'm recommending him. Sam, I recommend a darts player. Oh. If you need a darts player about the house, get Stephen Bartlett.
I'll ask.
Okay.
Make inquiries. It winds me up. Something about that winds me up.
No, that was.
I had to say, go on.
I was going to say what it is. I don't think anyone listening to this wouldn't know what that is, but it's the Arctic Monkeys with I Bet You Look Good on the Dance Floor.
Dance floor. Dance floor, darling. There's the production of both Franz the Ferdinands, and the Arctic and the Monkeys, or the Monkeys in the Arctic. Monkeys in the Arctic would be a better name.
Arctic Monkeys.
Arctic Monkeys. Cathartic Monkeys. Cathartic Monkeys and Franz and the Ferdinands. The production hasn't stood up. It sounds...
Oh.
I think the guitars don't sound very good on either of those albums. I think they sound pretty weedy. I think they sound... the drums don't sound... That guitar solo always wound me up. It transitions very impressively to the melody of the song, but it's a shit solo. It's like, you know... Oh, go on, Dave. You can do another one. You can do something better than that, for fuck's sake. Don't know what it was.
I just thought it was part of how sort of vaguely sloppy the start of the song is. And it then snaps in, a bit like Franz Ferdinand. What's Franz Ferdinand like sloppy, but it then snaps into the groove, doesn't it?
Well, but they do I think they do I guess what you say, you're right, that they do a sort of similar trick in a way. It's a variation on the theme of sort of like, here's one tempo, and then we're going to just sort of, whereas Arctic Monkeys go very bang, Franz Ferdinand sort of, it's a bit more sort of gradual, sort of planned out, sort of, oh no, we're going to sort of threaten something a little bit. But yeah, I never got on board with the Arctics at all.
I sort of run hot and cold. They're one of those bands who I like what they've become in the way they go about things, but I'm not a huge fan of the music. Their performance at Glastonbury Festival last year was just dull, just boring, just wasn't very interesting. And it's certainly not the first time they've headlined. They recorded their new album in Suffolk. There's a place called Butley Priory, which is, you and I have cycled around. I always say that about Suffolk because you've cycled most of Suffolk with me. But it's literally just like it's a priory. It's privately owned, and they set up a recording studio there and record the album there, which I think is interesting.
Fair enough.
Fair enough.
Hopefully
sounds like a lot of work. Whenever people set up a studio somewhere that isn't normally a studio, I think that sounds like a lot of work.
But, I mean, like some classic albums are recorded on mobile studios.
That bit of the Stone Roses album, I think, was recorded on a mobile studio. The Rolling Stones one, the same one that Led Zeppelin used as well. Right. I was thinking between those two times is like 20 years. They must have given it a lick of paint, or at least changed some of the buttons on the console or something. Let's have your next song, because your next song I have questions about. Who were that?
That was the Of Montreal with Bunny Out No Kind of Rider. And it's one of the weirdest producers. The production is fucking odd. And they are Canadian, I'd say sort of like fey indie pop band. And they've released... I mean, they're ridiculous. They're one of those bands that have, basically should stop putting out as much and actually start thinking about quality control. But they've released... That was from the album Hissing Fauna, Are You the Destroyer? And that was 2007, and they've released 19 albums since 1997. 19 albums since 1997. And if they didn't release an album that year, they released an EP.
That's busy. This goes back to one of the first things we ever talked about. Just slow down. Have quality control.
Yeah, and but at the same time, Hissing Fauna Are You the Destroyer is a masterpiece of an album.
Oh, okay.
I love
Cool.
it. I absolutely love it. They're one of the few bands, like pop bands, that when I was introduced to them by my friend Lawrence, I just sort of put it on and went, yeah, I'm sold. I don't know, something about it. I think there's something. It's an album. They've gone through a lot of different sort of sonic approaches. They started out as an indie band, and then they sort of went a bit more disco, dancey, electronica. At the moment, I think they're in sort of like an electronica world. And it's mostly these days. I think it's more or less a solo project by a chap called Kevin Barnes, who is the singer. And
It's an unusual amount of information for this podcast. Carry on.
I started listening. I listened to Hissing Fauna, Are You the Destroyer? Back, it's a really strange album lyrically. It's basically detailing his mental struggles at the time they recorded it, and it's sort of the lyrics in a way are just sort of they have an unguarded quality about them. They have like a stream of consciousness about them. Like they're not very edited, and they just sort of are.
I probably didn't have time if you're going to put out 19 albums.
Yeah.
Now, there's this really surprised me when I saw it on your list. So that this came out in 2015, and I'm going to look up the album because I'm just curious about it for lots of different reasons. But the one thing
2007, this one was.
Oh, was it?
Yeah.
Okay. So this song is called "Bunny Ain't No Kind of Rider."
Yeah.
And let me get my facts straight. In 2021, Caroline Polachek, American singer, released a song called "Bunny Is a Rider." So this is, we say 2007, Bunny Ain't No Kind of Rider. And then Caroline Polachek, she's the person who did the song that both making us laugh a few episodes ago, the one with the swans attacking her that she sampled.
Yeah.
Dang. So it's her, and she is always interesting. God, her new single that they're playing on radio at the moment is fucking brilliant. The new single it starts with like a heart monitor, beep, beep, and then everything else that comes into it. I just think she's fascinating. I like her voice. I like the way she approaches music. I think she's a lot of fun, as well as being kind of a good kind of experimental, not the sort of the introspective disappear up your own arse kind of experimental. Actually, like, no, let's try and make something really, really good. Let's not just experiment for the sake of it being experimental, which is what I do with my music. So Bunny Is a Rider. Now, nobody can confirm if the two songs are linked, but fucking hell, Bunny Ain't No Kind of Rider and Bunny Is a Rider. They knew each other and they were hanging out in the same scene, but there's quite a few years between the two songs.
Yes, and I don't know if there's any relationship between the artists, but this was sort of the biggest, as far as I understood, this is the biggest of Montreal. Well, maybe it's not the biggest of Montreal album, but it's sort of the album that brought them to a bigger consciousness, as far as I understood. And the lyrics, the whole song feels a bit, sort of glued together, but it's got this. What they do is these sort of like very artistic, disco-based, indie disco sort of based sort of pop songs, but there's like a real sort of art to it, and there's always an amazing chorus, or frequently there's a really, really good chorus, but with weird lyrics. So the lyrics to the chorus of this one is either, "I'm sorry, but you will never have me. To me, you're just some faggy girl, and I need a lover with soul power. You ain't got no soul." It's like, you ain't got no soul power. It was just like, and I when I looked that up, there was a load of people on Reddit going, "Shit, this isn't homophobic, is it?" And like, it's really not. It's a recording of a conversation, maybe a conversation that's going on in his head, or something he's overheard. But I don't know. I just sort of went, this like fear of artistic expression using language that you don't necessarily approve of just sort of annoyed me a bit.
No, I know where you're coming from. I'm going to go listen to that album because there's enough mystique and stuff around it, and the connection with Caroline Polachek. She did tweet
the track before that is also 11 minutes long, has one riff in it, but they vary it enough. I think it's got one riff in it. They vary it enough to sort of actually keep it interesting.
Yeah, just mind something that you said about good choruses. Choruses are often overlooked in sort of experimental electronic music, and I think they're pretty important.
I think actually one of the geniuses of David Bowie was that he, underneath all the experimentation, the songs are solid. You can take away
solid. They're solid to the point that if you
things.
I think they're solid to the point that if you have to listen quite closely to even stuff like Heroes to realise how much experimental stuff's in there, because the song's so strong, and it's such a well-crafted production that you kind of. It took me ages. Everyone knows Heroes. It took me ages to realise that Robert Fripp's doing some weird shit in that.
Yeah.
Like really odd guitar playing, really strange, but it doesn't. Nothing stands out louder than anything else. David Bowie's bassist, long-running bassist. I can't remember her name, but she was on the radio the other day, and she's an interesting person as well. Really cool. But we are running late, and I generally say that around the 55-minute mark. So I've chosen a song for my next one that they always skip the intro when this was in the hit parade. So when I looked it up to listen to it outside of the context of the radio, I chose to listen to it. I did not recognise it at all.
1 2 1 2. Yo, check this out. It's the jump off right now. I want everybody to put your rope down, put your guns down, and report to the pit, the gravel pit. Leave your problems at home. Leave your children at home. We gonna take it back underground. I be Bobby Boulders. Wu-Tang Clan on your mind one time. It's the jump off, so just jump off, my God.
Ha! Holocaust from the land of the lost. Behold the pale horse, off course.
What? I'm listening to it now. I'm suddenly like, yeah, it's a hype, isn't it? It's a classic hip hop or sort of James Brown song start. Oh, sorry, that was Wu-Tang Clan, in case anyone didn't know it. Gravel Pit.
It's a weird one, though. It does sort of stand out as like, why is that on the same track? You could make that as a different track listing. It's weird.
It's weird. We'll just leave it as that. I was quite disappointed when I saw the video because it is just nonsense. Boobies. Booby nonsense.
Booby nonsense.
I thought, come on, Wu-Tang should be above that, better than that, aren't they? Apparently not.
It's easy to. It's easy. I always think it's easy to criticize.
Fun too.
It's fun to criticize. It's fun to criticize a lot of actions that are not reflective of. I mean, I don't know how much say they had in making their videos or how much they cared actually at certain points. But also there is a long-running issue of misogyny in the music industry, and it's not just hip-hop. And I remember when I became politically conscious and just sort of looking at the Deftones' second album, which I loved, and I just ruined it. Punk rock ruined my life. I couldn't listen to the Deftones because it just went, oh no, this is just lazy sexism.
Oh, is it really? I'm really disappointed by that because I always thought your lad with the microphone seemed to have a bit more about him. He sort of, even in the new metal, he sort of stood out because he was prepared to stick up for himself a lot of the time.
It's the picture. It literally is a picture of a woman in a bikini.
Not seated, just
with no head either. So disembodied, just female body in a bikini. Why do you need that if you're not subjugating, women?
I don't want to get into it, but it's the same thing when Mastodon made the video with Booby Nonsense, and they were like, "Oh no, we weren't doing it to be misogynist. We're doing it to highlight it." Like, that's just a shit way of doing it. A shit way of making the point, isn't it? Right, let's move on to your last choice.
It's what you say when you come through the door. Some like that shoot the unheard and get a company of the blood nerve. Then maybe you can access the 1/3 of your mind. Some like that. Recipes for a white meat beach. I characters on my tight meat teeth. So I stay a skywrite deep links to show you through the red light and we away.
Who's that, Sam?
That's Bus Driver with Bliss Point from the album Perfect Hair from the 2014s. And I've listened to like 3 of his albums, but Perfect Hair, which was released on Big Dada, which is a weird one, which is a British independent label, mostly associated with Roots Maneuver. And it's an incredible album. It is a rap art masterpiece in my books, and that doesn't count for anything. But I fucking love it. And he does these really weird things where he raps over saxophone. He raps to a saxophone solo.
It sounded when it first started. I was like, okay, well, everything I love about hip hop is the flow. And that's incredibly awkward. But when it then sort of reveals itself, it's brilliant. Yeah, the rapping to the sax is wonderful. And I was sort of thinking with that one, could it be that it's showing a contrast? So when it starts, it's so awkward, and it's quite a difficult listen. Emma from the kitchen, when I was clipping this, she's like, "This Sam's choice." I'm like, but when it then slides into the flow, I see that as a similar vehicle to the Franz Ferdinand and Tharctic Monkeys that we had earlier. It's sort of like tight aggressive, and then all just opens out, and yet more hip hop that I've never heard of, Sam.
So this is that was like a 3.5 minute track. That's a minute. That was a minute and 10 into it. So it's about the halfway mark. So the song is gone. The song is going. And he doesn't actually change the melody of the track that much, but he never brings the beat back. And he just it just goes off in its own direction, and it is sort of like 2 songs plastered together but it works really well. It really sort of takes you on a journey with it.
I might as well just leave it as read that I'm going to go and look up a lot more of, whenever you bring music like this to the list. Other podcasts do like, hey, check our Spotify playlist. But, oh man, I've been learning so much more about Spotify recently that's so on shit. Right.
Share with us.
It's the way this all started. There's a guy called Ben Jordan who's an artist. He makes music as the flashbulb. And you've seen his videos before. He did one about vinyl. And you pointed out that he tends to be quite subjective, and he used the phrase, he was intertwining the phrase fact and opinion. Mm-hmm. But he's made loads of videos about how sketchy Spotify is, and all his music got removed from all the streaming services. And it's back now, but this man has, he has something insane like 1.5 billion streams a year. He makes money to buy food and stuff. And he looked into it, and he was trying to explain what the weird relationship is between the artist and Spotify and other streaming services. But he sort of just picks on Spotify. And what happened? It's so strange because we have to go through intermediaries. So my music goes through DistroKid, although I'm thinking of just pulling my music off streaming services. It's just bizarre and pointless. But what happened with DistroKid and Spotify is that when they founded, they gave shares to all the major labels. They didn't take investment; they gave shares to the labels, and that put the labels in a position where we were back to the late 60s, early 70s, where a small group of labels were basically controlling a large part of the music scene, or the streaming part of the music scene, and that doesn't sit well with me. But the whole challenge is, right, so I have to pay this intermediary, DistroKid, to put my music on Spotify and Tidal and whatever. And I mean, I'm not a popular artist in any way at all, so I never look at my stats. But after watching this Ben Jordan video, I thought, oh, I'll go and have a look, and I'll just be as depressed as ever when I see that 3 people have listened to one of my songs in the last 6 months. And I'm, just literally haven't looked. I looked, and I've had over 500,000 streams. I'm like, what? 500,000 streams on Spotify, 500,000. And I'm like, at first, like, I've got this like knot in my stomach of like, shit. Well, oh my God, I've been wanting people to hear my music, obviously, since I was a kid. Wow, oh my God.
Turns out to be your mum.
Pardon?
Turns out to be
my
your mum.
Yeah. So I started trying to dig into it, and even though you have to go through an intermediary, if you want to know which of your songs have been listened to on Spotify, you have to sign up for something called Spotify for Artists. I cannot find any information to back up that claim that I've had 500,000 streams. Nothing. Absolutely nothing. I want to know which songs. I want to know. Who wouldn't? If you've been putting out as much music as I have, you want to know what's successful. And Dystopian, that's Marin Skell, that's my solo stuff. Dystopian Sound Collective, the band I did for a while, has 40,000-50,000 streams. And I'm like, again, what? It can't. If it was just the solo stuff that had a lot more streams than I was expecting, I'd be like, well, what the fuck? It's a glitch. I still think it's a glitch. It can't possibly be true. It's like me passing my GCSE maths. There is no way I passed that, but I got a B, so it was a glitch. So what's really odd is that the 40,000 or 50,000 or whatever streams for Dystopian Sound Collective has made me £21, roughly. And the 500,000 streams for Marin Skell has made me, I think, £14. I'm like, how? What? I mean, I didn't give a shit. I knew the music, the money's shit. But, while I'm paying 40, 50 quid, I can't remember how much I actually pay to get these things on the streaming service. And I just thought, why am I paying? Why? It's costing me money to put things out there. And I always just assumed that's fine. I do it because I want people to hear my music. Then I thought, no, they're relying on a lot of people to do that. And Spotify used to own a large proportion of the shares of DistroKid. So they've set up a system that favors major labels and puts them ahead of everything else when it comes to setting up playlists and whatever, the way music's discovered. And they're also making money from artists to put stuff up there. I just thought it's just such a clusterfuck that I want no part of it. And I've not fully decided, but I can't have had 500,000 streams. I know, have faith in yourself and all that, but have you heard my music? It's not exactly broad appeal. So that's my little rant on Spot.
Yeah,
but not really a rant. Just sort of what I'll send you the link afterwards, and I'll put it in the show notes as well, because it's an interesting watch. It's not entirely subjective. Objective. But anyway,
nothing's objective.
We ought to have my last choice.
Doesn't exist.
First of all, do you know who this is?
I'm pretty sure it's Sepultura.
Oh, for fuck's sake! I can never catch you out. Apart from
not a fucking Sepultura.
First of all, the only time I think I've caught you out is when I played New Queens of the Stone Age single, and you thought it was a British band. It's not Sepultura, but I'll explain in a minute.
Soulfly.
How small is that snare drum? I really need to listen to more Soulfly and Sepultura, because every time I hear them, I'm like, yes!
Well, I'd say the last few albums of Soulfly have been good. And sometimes I think Max Calavera is possibly the greatest extreme metal singer-songwriter, because his consistency since the mid-80s to now is ridiculous. Like far beyond anybody. And this is something that goes unrecorded, I think, by a lot of people, is how actually consistently brilliant a lot of the stuff he's put out, and how good some of the riffs are, and so on and so forth. And it's like his Sepultura stuff is on a pedestal, quite rightly. And the first Soulfly album is an album I love dearly. And I think he went off boil for like 3 or 4 albums, but then he's been putting out good albums of Soulfly for over 10 years now. And then he's done stuff with, he did Nail Bomb. You might like Nail Bomb, which is his industrial project with...
Oh, really?
With a guy from Fudge Tunnel. What's it called?
Fudge Tunnel. Touring now with Angry
Alex
Slaps.
Newport from Fudge Tunnel. And then he's also got, like, I don't know, it's just like he's an incredibly consistent musician. But the first Soulfly album is by far the best one. And then, or the one that has made the biggest mark on me. But it blurs in my head as well between that and Roots, which is the last Sepultura album with Max Cavalera on it. I've just got to say, for the interest of transparency, I got that suggestion from a friend, a guy called Dell, and I got it because I was really stuck to find a fourth song that I thought really encapsulated the irrelevant intro thing, and I feel a bit bad because Soulfly's, when Max kind of his part, his world, I don't want to say his ethnicity, where he grew up. I'm guessing that bit on the beginning is something connected to that. Well, no,
maybe.
He's, as far as I understand, he's Italian descent, but grew up in. He was Italian parents, but they lived in Brazil, so he's Brazilian. But at some point in the mid-90s, they got more and more interested in, sort of, for lack of a better term, sort of. Indigenous Brazilian music. And so he went off, Sepultura went and recorded some stuff with Amazonian tribes back in the 90s. And sort of, he went down, the Soulfly first 3 albums is sort of like a combination of nu metal, root Sepultura, whatever you want to call that, groove metal, and what they were sort of bringing in at the time, which is sort of a bit world music-y. And it's a bit world music-y
into metal. Let's not forget bringing world music into extreme metal.
Yeah, and like I remember subsequent albums, they put on things like they have like dub bass intros and stuff like this, and they have a load of sort of outros, but they're never incorporated quite into the song. They're always sort of like a moment before the song or a moment after the song.
I like that. That's a really interesting way to do it. That's cool, because it's just like little tinkering around with other bits and just going, look, we quite like the sound of this bit, but it's probably not that they don't know what to do with it. On a metal album, you might be able to have the last song as something that's completely different. But if you sort of had that as a thread in the main songs, it would be an odd thing. It would be strange. So having little amuse-bouche, sonic amuse-bouche, I really like that. That's cool.
Well, yeah, I mean, you're right. There's a lot of extreme metal. A lot of metal doesn't really add a lot of textures beyond the guitars, bass, and drums. And actually, it's quite and occasional symphonic elements and stuff. It's nice to hear something else going on in the music. It gives your ears a bit of a different breathing space than just silent, 2-second silences or second silence between songs.
I really like that amuse the ears thing. It's what we do. What I do when we make techno. That's what everyone does. He makes techno. You think it's just the pounding 4 on the floor, but you're always having a constantly evolving something in the background. Otherwise, it's just Well, otherwise, it's just boring to listen to. I think this has been a really interesting episode, and we've made things very difficult for ourselves. I thought relevant intros would be really easy subjects. It'd be interesting to see what we pick next. But I think we need to wrap it up about here. So thank you ever so much for your time, Mr. Sam. Thank you. Listeners, thank you for sticking with us. Please subscribe. We're doing all right for subscribers, for this phase of things.
12.
No, we've got more than that. We've got
13.
We've got subscribers on Apple. We can only see how many we've got on Apple Podcasts and on Spotify. Yeah, my whole rant about Spotify. Hey, we're hosted by Spotify. Nice one. But we don't pay for this yet. So I'm going to say goodbye, Sam. Do you want to say goodbye?
We have 20 subscribers on YouTube.
Really?
Yeah.
None of them ever watched the videos. The videos have all been watched like once or twice. The shorts thing is popular. The Bob Dylan, us trying to understand Bob Dylan clip on both TikTok and YouTube is the most popular clip by far. The most listened to Beat Motel podcast episode by far is the Pink Floyd one that I did with Simon Fimbo about. Oh, we're a year old. I meant to put something on socials. I think it was 2 days ago. We're a year old. We've been doing this shit for a year, which I thought was quite exciting.
Well, it's the only social thing I do all week, so it's nice. I really appreciate it.
We're coming up to 100th episode. We ought to think of something special to do for that. Naked episode.
But that one's not going on YouTube. That's on OnlyFans.
It's only from nipples upwards, anyway.
Can we put this on OnlyFans and see if we get?
What would our version be? OnlyBands? No, it's not
OnlyBands.
Anyway, we're just padding now. Happy birthday to us. We rock. Thanks for subscribing. Please subscribe more. Please tell your friends. Please go into branches of John Lewis, and where they've got all the computers and Macs there for you to play with, please just fire up Beat Motel and just press play so that more people find out about us in John Lewis.
And if you have any angry flaps, please go and see someone about them.